Hello everyone, and welcome back to Void Dwarf Studios for our next Slaanesh episode. We now dive into the HQ units. I will save the named ones for last, but we'll be looking into the more generic HQs that you can have for your Hedonites of Slaanesh. A quick disclaimer here, as quite rightly pointed out in one of my previous videos, some of the rules for Slaanesh units are bound to change, simply because, well, they have a new book coming out. So, some of the information I have provided may not be accurate anymore. With this in mind, going forward, I'm probably going to keep rules to an absolute minimum, unless I know that the army hasn't got a rulebook on the horizon, which means then the actual video is useful and entertaining. Or at least I hope it will be entertaining. Anyway, on with the show. Hedonites of Slaanesh. As it currently stands, the leaders for the Slaaneshi armies are all demonic in one form or another. That is mostly because the warriors of Slaanesh, at the time of this recording, are in their own army book. And whilst there are warriors of Slaanesh that are about to come out, and there are undoubtedly going to be more HQ units who are more mortal than demon, right now they are predominantly more on the demonic side as opposed to the human side. So we will discuss the demonic HQs of Slaanesh, starting out with the Humble Herald. I say humble, it's a Slaanesh demon, so humble is kind of a dirty word. But in any case, a herald is a demonette who has risen higher in Slaanesh's esteem, or at the very least has gained a little bit of a following of her own. Although I probably wouldn't mention the second part too loudly, as Slaanesh is a jealous entity. So before Slaanesh ended up in his prison in Ulgalosh, the heralds essentially were handmaidens, more or less. Each one was a favoured chosen of Slaanesh. This will be normally due to them being able to either, well, kill lots of things, seduce lots of individuals, and just generally do things that amuse the Prince of Pleasure. And heralds tend to do this by offering mortals gifts and promises of glory and personal fulfillment or carnal fulfillment, and then they'll twist their ambitions and desires towards narcissism, paranoia, madness, and just, lead them down that lovely little gilded path of damnation. And the higher up a herald goes, the closer they were allowed to approach Slaanesh's throne, making them more and more happy and, well, just, loving life more. However, when Slaanesh did get imprisoned in Ulgalosh, as I said, this system kind of became a bit chaotic. The heralds of Slaanesh were pining and crying and basically having one hell of a heartbreak because Slaanesh is now gone, and they kind of ended up squabbling, fighting, and stabbing one another to try and make sure that they retained their positions as they once had. Most of the heralds act and hope in the desire that their actions will help lead towards Slaanesh coming back, and, well, in a manner of speaking, it has. These demonettes, who are more powerful than the rest, use this power and authority to instruct other mortals and demons to do their bidding. Everything they do is towards trying to create pain and ecstatic pleasure for themselves and in some way towards Slaanesh. And these heralds can take multiple forms, the most numerous of which are known as vice leaders, experts at finding mortal, impure souls and drawing them further towards damnation. They will use seductive sorceries, they will carefully corrupt their victims, they will hatch plans and schemes that will lead people down the road towards debauchery and tight leather, and basically, over the years and decades, these demonettes become, well, more and more powerful, each one setting up new cults in different lands. These typically tend to survive best in large, sprawling cities, especially anything the size of some of the storm keeps, as it's easier for them to conduct these kinds of things underground. Beneath these cities, they will slowly grow their cults, organising pleasures of the flesh, shall we say, as well as just opportunities for greed, gluttony, avarice, every kind of vice that you can have, on the face of it trying to make themselves look as pleasant, inviting and lovely as possible, without people realising that things are not what they seem. Slaanesh relies on slow, very slow and subtle acts of corruption, especially with the armies of Sigmar around, making absolutely sure that any obvious signs of corruption are stamped out really fast. In order to survive this long, a herald must use all of its guile and cunning to make sure that any manipulations are done subtly, carefully, and with great patience and planning. However, especially in more recent times, there is a bit more haste because of Slaanesh's return. If a herald is in a particular mind to, they can in fact reduce most mortals to gibbering wrecks just by subtle whispers, seductive motions, and, well, just flaunting what they got, as it were, as Slaanesh demons can alter and change their form to fit the environment and, well, situations that they most use. In combat, Vice leaders are the heads of the various cults. They will lead groups of demonettes into battle and basically make sure that they fight more effectively. Essentially, this is what your heralds do. They are conduits for you to be more effective in battle. They can cast some spells, and they make sure that your demonettes have the best chances to inflict as much damage as possible. These heralds also have the option to ride on board those lovely seeker chariots. The Hellflare ones, except this variant has way more spiky wheels, all the better for cutting, slicing, and just generally meat grinding everything, as well as having a couple more demonettes on board because fun times. And with the extra long whips, making it all the more enjoyable for you to just flay the flesh from your foes. This is definitely something that you bring out when subtlety is off the board, and you want to move around as fast as you can and, well, hit things like an absolute truck. Don't make it stay in combat very long. I strongly recommend that you hit and run and get it out and get this thing out of dodge as fast as possible, but if you back it up with a couple more chariots, then this thing is going to cause all kinds of horrific pain to anyone and everyone who decides to get in the way. The other variant of a herald is known as an Infernal Enraptus. Weavers and lovers of music and harmony and, well, mind-shattering cacophonies. Infernal Enraptus' role is often to act as a vanguard to a Slaanesh army. Their job is to beguile, place glamours on individuals, as well as entire towns and cities. Using their power to create demonic illusions, they present themselves as muses, artists, people who are capable of creating great beauty amidst the horrors of war. They present themselves to muses to various artists within these various cities. And these artists, who are more often than not bent on trying to create some kind of beauty amongst the horrors of war surrounding the mortal realms, these Enraptuses will feed into their minds, prey on them, but in a very subtle way. They will use their talents and bring out their true potential, their greatness at their particular given art and craft, making them, in one way or another, the best artists they could possibly be, seeking them out through their dreams, moulding and magnifying their ambition and obsessions, making them only able to think about the various beautiful things they wish to create in this world, at the detriment to everything else. These demons then place in their minds a vision of a perfect piece of music, or a perfect sculpture, or a perfect crafted item. And they will place this belief inside their mind that this item will be the thing that could end the war or unite their empire. And these Enraptuses will continue to visit these artists in this dream state of bliss, and many of them will die of starvation because they'll be working so hard to try and bring this thing to life. And in other cases, most of them do become gibbering wrecks before they get to the starvation part, their minds and souls shattered under the weight of the undertaking they're trying to do, and the despair that they'll never be able to achieve it. In the case of musicians, when a single musician is able to create their masterpiece, they feel a strong sense that the only way for it to become complete is to give not just their imagination, talent, and time into the piece. They must become the piece, giving up of their own flesh, and that is when the muse, the Infernal Raptus, will appear. The instrument will become wrought from their own body, the willing victim subjugated and becoming known as a heartstring lyre. The tattered fragments of their flesh, the stretched muscles, the various tendons and ligaments contorted into this horrific instrument that emits screams and sounds of pure torment and joy at the same time, that any who hear it often go mad. When the Dark Prince's legions march, the Infernal Enraptuses use these lyres to bring the battlefield closer into Slaanesh's realm, pouring in chaotic magic and allowing even more demons to assault the living, making it harder and harder to banish them from the realm. And in this way, Infernal Enraptuses are the perfect means to infiltrate cities. Any joy you might have, any craft you may love, anything you put your heart and soul into, Slaanesh will find a way to twist it, contort it, and make it serve his purposes. And Enraptus is a buffing unit. That is without question. They are there not only to provide debuffs for your enemy, but to provide buffs for your demonettes, making it easier for them to appear in this realm. And if you have one or two of these in your army, they are going to make things very, very hard for your opponent to get rid of your forces. Not someone to be involved in any kind of close combat, but as a herald they are more than capable of dishing it out if they absolutely have to. This is not a helpless wizard. This is still a herald, with all the powers and capabilities of, well, not just beguiling you and stabbing you through the chest, but making you wish the herald would stab you through the chest. And finally, following on from the artistic themes, we have the contorted epitome. This is not a single herald, but a pair. It is a pair who have chosen to reside within one another's presence. This close bond is cemented by a sacred guardianship of an ornate mirror, known as the Mirror of Absorption. It is a priceless magical artifact entrusted to them from Slaanesh's home palace. This is no normal mirror, ladies and gentlemen. It is a demonic object in its own right. It's alive. The mirror writhes and swirls around using its metallic tentacles that move at the command of the demonettes controlling it. Legend claims that the contorted epitome was created from an artificer known as Venatan in an age of myth long past. He strove to perfect the art of silvering glass, and each of his prototype mirrors were fought over by rich and nobles alike for the beauty they could see within the mirror. Slaanesh, greatly pleased by these beautiful mirrors that not only epitomize the love of narcissism, the love of self, but the fact that these mirrors could contort and twist people's views of themselves, seeing essentially what they wanted to see. So nobles and ladies who looked like horrific, ugly old crones would look in these and see themselves as beautiful. He plotted to capture this alchemist and use his gift for his own ends, and on Vanaton's deathbed this was achieved. As the mortal gazed profoundly upon his reflection, Slaanesh reached through the glass and took him in to the Temple of Twisted Mirrors, where he has been imprisoned ever since. Hoping to strike back at his captor, the soul of Venatan invented the Mirror of Absorption, a looking glass with the ability to devour energy, specifically chaotic energies. This he hoped would drain the power of Slaanesh. Unfortunately, this artifact was soon shattered by the sheer magnitude of Slaanesh's vanity, the power of the Prince of Pleasure just not being capable of being absorbed by these mirrors. However, far from being enraged, as Slaanesh normally would at someone attempting to install years of bad luck on him via broken mirrors, he recognized the power and potential within these new mirrors, and instructed Vanaton to create more, and bonded them with a semi-sentient framework that allowed them to move independently, and he would give them to a pair of heralds. This is predominantly used as a dedicated casting unit. It's great for not only absorbing the magic from your enemy, but also being able to do mortal wounds to your opponent. And like I said, I'm not going to go too much into rules for Slaanesh units because, well, we've got a book on the horizon here, which probably is going to be more on the mortal side, but we will save that for now. And finally, our last non-named hero is the Keeper of Secrets. Keepers of Secrets are the very essence of Slaanesh, with thousands of whims, moods, desires, personalities, agendas, each one of them competing inside for these different things that they desire and want. It's frankly incredible that these creatures aren't all completely and utterly insane. These are the closest companions to the great Prince of Pleasure itself, and also the most exalted of its servants. Their bodies, powerful, slender, athletic, sinuous, yet still with all the strength to be able to decapitate you with a single blow or crush you like paste, swords, hooves, and pincers. They bedeck themselves with jewels, fine cloth, and anything that they find desirable. These are truly decadent creatures who excel at being decadent creatures. Due to the fickle nature of Slaanesh, these creatures all have a dominant personality. Like I said, each one of these keepers of secrets have their own burning desires and agendas. Some of them, you may remember from a previous video, wanted to become the new keeper of secrets, while some of them wanted to bring Slaanesh back. Both pain and pleasure are irrevocably twisted into their minds. They cannot help themselves. They must seek out battle, and they find the most bliss in the act of slaughter, chaos, carnage. They gloat and they take sadistic pleasure in the act of killing and torturing their victims. They don't enjoy killing quickly. It's got to be as painful as possible for the opponent. To them, the art of bloodletting is just as much a poetic form of pleasure, I'm saying pleasure a lot, aren't I, as being able to write a perfect sonnet. There is nothing more satisfying for a keeper of secrets than to corrupt a noble heart and turn it to the perverse pleasure of Slaanesh. The keeper of secret will love the beginning of the battle, will revel in the anticipation and feast on the delicious emotions that are swirling around. And ironically, as the battle goes on, they tend to get a bit bored, until they themselves are being attacked, and then that pleasure heightens up again, and when they reach the end, desperate pleas for mercy, or any kind of retreat, makes these greater demons of Slaanesh enjoy the thrill of the chase, of the hunt, and the sickening moans of the dying. They act as though they own everything they see, and they act as though everything belongs to them. Highly intelligent creatures, their silver tongues and knowledge of the ability to cast magical illusions and glamours, they are the best HQ option you can have until we start getting into named characters. Loathsome yet beguiling, horrific yet fascinating. Their most powerful weapon is their voice, because they can use it to turn even the most stout of heart upon their enemies, as well as lash their minds and cause torment and agony to their bodies. They are fast beyond belief, using their speed and agility to far outstretch and surpass any foe, and their knowledge of the magical arts makes them a truly dangerous demon to face. You can equip these terrifying monstrosities with several different weapon options, and each one of them gives them various benefits in close combat, but frankly, it's a giant demon. You throw this thing into the enemy, and you cause as much pain with it as you can. It is a powerful melee unit with lots of attacks, a pretty decent save, and it will more than make up for its points. And the new model, I just want to say, is gorgeous. I did like the original Slaanesh model, but this one is such a step up, in my personal opinion. And that is the Slaanesh HQ units. We'll talk about the named ones next week, but I hope you've enjoyed this video. Would you rather I talk about the rules a bit more, or do you mind it being more of a lore-based video, as opposed to a rules-based video? In any case, please like and subscribe down below. Thank you all so much for 170 subscribers. It's amazing. I can't believe this has happened, and it's awesome, and I have you all to thank for it. Tune in on Sunday, where we will have a Warhammer episode. Until then, take care, everyone.